as I tell many actors, I have to be in love with you for at least 2 years. My casting is from instinct because my initial cinema came from the streets, literally cinema verite, and working with real people. I am not afraid of casting real people.
Man, this shit is messing with my.
Happy belated birthday. I know it was a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, Mira, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we don't have that much time, but I've been a big fan of yours. You probably don't remember, we met first when I was at Yale.
Yes.
Kamaya was in my Hindi class.
Yes.
And, you have such fans because your work is so incredible. And so we're really excited to profile you because frankly, you've done so much this year and there's so much more to come in just the announcement. So thank you for taking the time. So
okay, my pleasure, Singha. And you are doing beautiful work with Juggernaut. Very excellent, provocative kind of writing, and the new cover on Rekhti music is just mind blowing to me.
Isn't that like all these untold stories?
But the tradition of it was so exciting, and gender bending and all of it, and also that it just goes to show that everything is in our ancientness, is all there. Nothing of what is happening has ever been a new thing. It's always been there, and been there to artistry, not to conflict and discrimination, it seems. So it's very lovely. Thank you for that. Even though somebody gave me a bad review, as I saw.
Oh, no. So by the way, they didn't give you a bad review.
I was like pissed off. I didn't read it fully. It was just the headline.
It was.
Did I do this interview?
They blamed the structure. They're like, why did you give Mira 6 episodes? Or, you needed to give her more. So they were.
That is true.
I will send you the review. You will see.
I don't want it.
Okay, you don't want it. Okay, there's nothing about you. It's all good things about you. And they're like, why isn't there more Mira? It's so short. It's like, that's what it was.
It is true. That is a point. But anyway, I was just pulling your leg since you're like, Himaya.
I know. I embarrassed her this morning because I was rewatching Monsoon Wedding. And I took a frame shot. And I sent it to Kamaya. I was like, Kamaya, like, look who shows up. And she's like, Snigdha, thanks for embarrassing me on like Instagram. I'm like, of course, Kamaya, I'm here for you. So Mira, I want to start with, I actually want to start with, what were you like as a child? Like, tell me about who you were, what you told your parents you wanted to be. Like, what were you like at that time?
I was the youngest of 3. And contrary to people's notion of being the youngest and only daughter, they say, oh, you must have been a spoiled child. Completely untrue, because both my parents' attention and frankly even a lot of times my attention were my brothers, two older brothers with whom I pretty much did everything. But I was a industrious sort of kid who did I was the fielder for their cricket games, and that was that. But we grew up in Bhubaneswar, much like the bungalows of Man Kapoor, Pran Kapoor's house in Brahmpur, and but I went through a period of looking for what I wanted to do I was industrious, so I would read a lot, and I would, for one long time, I thought I would be a writer, and I would do my own writing, like, I would be introduced to, say, Sanjukta Panigrahi, the Odissi danseuse, who's a friend of my mother's, and she would be rehearsing on the steps of Rajarani temple, and I would go there and like write an article about her. No one saw it, no one published it. It's not about that. It was like, how can I make, maybe this is what I am, I can write, or similarly like that, I would pursue my own things. I even went through a bad painter phase, like imitating and looking at art and seeing whether I could, do something of it. But unfortunately that passed very quickly. But the thing that was a eye opener for me was studying sitar for when I was, I think, between 10 and 10 and 12, I learned the sitar. And as you might know, it's a very difficult thing to do. And my teacher was Mr. Chakravarti, who's a Bengali guy who came on his bicycle. And, he used to teach me and he would tell me things that still I remember, like it will take 9 years to learn Rag Yaman, he would say. And he meant it very seriously. And it is true. It is completely true. In any case, in my room where he taught me, there were many books and many of my interests were in theater. And later I devoted myself to several years as an actor in the theater. But at that time, he saw this and he said, you cannot pursue two things. You have to focus on one, because music it'll take you 9 years to learn only Rag Yaman. And it opened my eyes that, I didn't necessarily obey. I didn't, but it definitely was a bit of an aha, because it is about focus and it is about sort of deciding what you want to do. But that deciding came very late not very late actually, but basically for me in terms of filmmaking, through my work in the theater as an actor, in Calcutta, then in Delhi, and then at Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then in New York City. So so that was my journey, I guess. If that answers. Yeah.
I love that, because I was going to mention that also in the interview, because someone posted a picture of you as an actor, and I also love your scene in Mississippi Masala, which is like such an iconic quote, right? You can't be dark and have no money, and Harry Patel. And to this day I'm like, guys, that was Mira Nair, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, the director, that was a cameo.
Yeah.
So tell me a little.
No better bitch in town. Meaning in Mississippi, it was difficult to cast Indians.
That also is true. So speaking of which, let's segue into, you have launched so much amazing, you've spotted so many amazing people, from Sarita Choudhury. So you joked about finding that dude Randeep Huda, who I've got to meet once, for Monsoon Wedding. So tell me, how do you
spot? Many more. Yeah.
Huh? How do you
so many more. Irrfan Khan, so many more.
Irrfan Khan from Salam Bombay. He looks so young in that. How do you do it? How do you do it? How do you find the talent, especially new talent, and give them a chance?
Firstly, I'm just genuinely very interested, and secondly, I operate, my casting is from instinct. And because my initial cinema came from the streets, literally cinema verite, and working with real people, I am not afraid of casting real people, because they have, when I do try to cast them, they have a certain spirit that I am not, that I find, that I want, So it's through that, with actors, like casting unknown young actors, it's from seeing what they do, how they are, how particular they are, it's with Irrfan, it was, just he just stood out to me. I saw him in a basement class in the National School of Drama. He was 18, and unlike, he just had an incredible capacity of listening and stillness, and a look that was unforgettable, hooded eyed and sort of a body like a praying mantis. He immediately captured my imagination, and it was his seriousness about what he was doing in that play that I was affected by. So it's different things. It's different things. With Sarita, it was her absolute lack of vanity, in the face of great beauty and all that, but she was just could not care less, and her fierce intelligence. It's always intelligence, I think, that attracts me, but it's like that, and I think now I've done it so often that I'm beginning to think that there's a pattern here. But I think that there's an extraordinary alchemy that does happen with new people, newcomers, who don't have a shtick, opposite sometimes skilled legends who do have a shtick, and both temper each other. I am firmly of that opinion, and actually, therefore, if you guide them to some extent only, bring out the best in each other. But it all depended on the role. Like, look at Kimaya, in Monsoon Wedding. Kimaya is like my daughter. I needed to be with someone whom I could just, you know, you know, like talk to as if she's my beti, They say, okay, and she's, well, look at her. She's full of beans, sprightly, full of mischief, and yet not cutesy over this, over that. She doesn't want to be a child star. She's the most reluctant. She's one of the household, you know and she fit right in. Of course, her look was great too in terms of the Verma family. But I also wanted that instant intimacy that I have with Kimaya, with this child, And Kimaya happens to be my best friend's daughter, but in the case of Bhaskar in Suitable Boy, the lovely Yusuf, um, it was auditioning and seeing many children and his look also is. I'm very as I tell many actors, I have to be in love with you for at least 2 years.
That gives me to my second question, which is, not only do you find talent, you often return to the same actors and cast in different movies and place them in different situations. And that's also kind of incredible for me because it feels a little bit like a family. So, how do you think about that and going back to some of your, past folks and kind of recasting them?
I don't think to do that when I meet with actors. And in fact, only until Monsoon Wedding, I think that I have reused in an active way. Otherwise, actually, I'm not overtly looking for that. But I think that again, it's about to do with appropriateness of roles. I mean, I had a tremendous experience of casting, again, largely unknowns for the Monsoon Wedding stage musical, both in North America and in India. And the actors that we got after a long and hard search were just gold, And when they're gold and they fit into ways, like in Suitable Boy, when you have 110 characters and a grueling schedule, and you need to just get it, get it. You need to work with those can give you things, and also can build on, the intimacy, like Shahana Goswami as Meenakshi Mehra. I mean, firstly, it's one of my favorite characters ever.
She is a sex bomb. She's
she's just like, a sparkler supreme. And again, I also know her very well from she was she was, anyway, she was off the record, she was my nephew's girlfriend growing up. And so, but that was not why I cast her. I cast her because she just has the sparkle and the sex appeal and the wit and the skill and the absolute bravery to go into it and not and not be, as I said to her, contrary to what people might think of Meenakshi Mehra, for me, she's a girl's girl. Like she, she's not one of those who do it for the men and diss the women. She's a girl's girl. And it really was important to me that she's not this, bitch on wheels. Anyway, so that was, and that's what I wanted. And anyway, I just saw it, and that's, so I don't know if that answers your question, but it goes on. It's a marriage, I think, for me, of instinct and to some extent experience, but a lot of it is, just the essence of a person. If they don't have comic timing, I cannot direct that.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I just cannot direct comic timing. If you either kind of have it, or I have to, I can't force it on you, and there's no need to, because there's a lot of people.
There's so many
comic timings. Yeah.
So I want to now talk a little bit about getting these projects together. In this Crimson interview way back when, you said, if you make films that are about people of color, you have much less money to make them.
Yes.
And we're entering this kind of new era. You have been so good at, pushing for these kind of storylines that are about the brown gaze, not the Western gaze.
Mm-hmm.
How was it like fundraising for those movies then? And has it become easier now? Has it changed at least? Like, you are Mira Nair, is it easier to fundraise for your projects?
I mean, to answer, back then, it was not easy at all. It was not just not easy for me, but it was not easy for there was no black film, there was no brown film, there was not much of that at all, um but also there was also it was also the creation and the struggle of independent film. It was at the beginning of that, right? The 70s and the early 80s. And I used to and I used to think, as it was a struggle, and we sort of kept winning the battle, but you have to win the battle on several fronts to make something that is provocative for them. It may be your reality, but provocative for them. Is so unknown that definitely it's a discount price. It's still a discount price. Why do you think Suitable Boy was 6 episodes? That it's still considered radical. Okay, 6 episodes are going to be made. you know? um, you know, so it's radical. It's difficult, but it was also difficult for creation of independent voices in across the board. But of course, if you thought a little bit more in the white realm in those days, it was a bit easier. But I never have, and it's only some films so many films I've made, but they're made for they come to me for some reasons, and I can talk about them. But yes, it has it has become, of course, easier. I mean, loads of people know me and all that, but it's still dependent on what you want to make. If you want to make a reluctant fundamentalist, it will take even me 5 years. That's what it took me. Yeah. 5 years to adapt it and to raise the money for a Pakistani boy coming of age, loving America, and then after 9/11 being disillusioned by it. People I knew would not want to pay for it over here. And I also knew that I did not want the studios to pay for it, because they would then make another movie out of it. I would want to make it in the way it had to be, at least whatever warts and all, what difficulties and all, whether I succeeded or not, in the way, without censorship, without changing the lodestar of what Mohsin's book was. So it depends on what you want to do. But now I have to say, I definitely feel, that people are looking for us, and we have to be very careful about that, because they'll happily make you the flavor of the moment and give you every 10 versions of Monsoon Wedding to direct, although it's never going to be Monsoon Wedding. You know what I mean? But the door is open, and now I don't know, they're sort of shamed into opening the door wider. And they almost need to have the cred to say that they have hired so and so, or I mean, somebody very high up in Disney said that to me about Queen of Katwe. It was great. It was necessary as a credit deposit or something. They used some word that I can't recall, but that idea, um, वो सब तो चलता है. If you know Hindi.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do know some Hindi, and you do know Hindi.
Studied. Yeah.
I studied it. I paid Yale a lot of money to study my own language.
That's so silly.
let's talk a little bit about your upcoming projects then, and some of the exciting announcements that I really want to tease. One of them, I'm going to go through the list I have, and then you tell me where you want to dive in. We have a re-release of Mississippi Masala coming up. We have an Amrita Sher-Gil biopic. We have your Monsoon Wedding musical coming up. We have The Jungle Prince of Delhi that was just announced that you're going to be adapting. Suitable Boy is coming out in America on December 7th, apart from the Netflix release. You have a lot going on for you. Where should we begin?
And I'm sitting here alone in my little cocoon without any army of people helping at the moment, but that's how it is. COVID. Yes, but a lot of these things, especially the musical, have been 10 years in the making. A lot of fruition. It's coming to fruition. And in fact, it already was supposed to open this year, July 24th in England, but now it's next year in India, which is good. It's good for it. Yes, I do. But my focus now, and Suitable Boy is mostly, behind me, except for publicity. But what I am now doing, surrounded by, is Amrita. is Amri, our project. Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because it's such a great story. It's a tragic story too, right? Because
Yes.
she was so young. And to this day, there's like an army. Speaking of, Meenakshi being
Yeah.
the girl's girl, so many women are in love with what Amrita, has
Mhm.
created. Tell me a little bit more about how you
Well,
decided to do this.
Amrita Sher-Gil, is, as you know, one of the greatest modernist Indian painter. Her work and the bravery of her work and how she saw the world and how she saw India as well, also both, um, has informed my own work since 30, 40 years. I mean, every film I make, my lookbooks, my inspirations are so much from her palette, from her framing, even the stripes versus, and the modernist, the sort of her use of color. And I've always been, and of course, who hasn't been entranced by her own aesthetics? Um, so I've sort of carried her in my heart and in my eyes for decades, and also know a little bit her family, her nephew Vivan Sundaram, who's an equally great artist, a wonderful artist. And um, so and now anyway, so it's sort of in the little bit of the zeitgeist. I mean, different elements came together, all telling me that it could be that this is the time to make something about Amrita,
You know who you're.
and yeah, and so I'm working with a wonderful producer, young producer, Samudrika Arora. We're both Punjabi girls, like, very much understanding the essence of this, Sardarni, half Sardarni, half Hungarian. And I think her iconoclasm and her, I mean, she was not, she was an original, in the sense that um, ne- she created her own rules, but with a great sense of depth um, and mindfulness as well, contrary to what many people think, that she was just a libertine. And she explored everything, men, women, families on both sides, marrying her own first cousin, all of that, all the taboos, many taboos that didn't that but there was a great sense of genuine questioning and a search within her. But at the same time, she knew she was special, and she knew that she had, again, like Mr. Chakravarti, my sitar teacher, she knew early on that it was only painting for her. She had to paint, she had to live to paint. And she was just, she gives me courage, every time I think I'm losing my way. I She's one of the great barometers for me. So it's, you look to see what you want to do in your work, and what better than to pay homage to um, a woman beyond her time. I mean, she could belong any time, and yet, like your Rekti music, completely, uh, you know, what can I say, was showed us the way,
Yeah.
had it in her to show us the way, and the world does not know about her,
No,
at
not
all.
as much as they should at all.
No, and yeah, and you know,
I love that you're covering her story. I also wanted to ask you, usually end your films with these really funny credits. Like
yeah,
in Salam Bombay, it was No Guts, No Glory. I think you said 50 locations or 40.
52 locations, 52 days. What problem? No problem.
Exactly. And then for Monsoon Wedding, you said, oh my God, we do this only. Hold on. It's just,
Yeah, we are like this only.
we are like this only. Tell me where that tradition came from, and are there any other sayings you live by? Are these the sayings you live by, or were those
No,
like
no,
sayings for
no,
this?
no, no. That tradition came from just making independent film and giving you, the audience, a little bit of a window of our journey, of our struggle. And those sayings are not sayings that are off the wall. They're sayings that came from that particular film. So 52 locations, 52 days is exactly what we did for Salam Bombay. And people would say 52 locations, 52 locations. And we would always, in the crew, because we were a ragtag team of doing our best, what problem? No problem. That's what the kids would say, the street kids. So it became a kind of a bit of a chant. And No Guts, No Glory was a line that Suni had written for one of the kids, and it was such a great line. And that's what it, so these became kind of our mantras while making the film. And I just thought in independent cinema you'd share that with the people, and similarly Monsoon Wedding, we are like this only, actually it's funnily a name of a song now in the musical, we are like this only, because that's how we are, that's Indian, MTV slang at the time. It was like, "Arey yaar, yahan to hum to aise hi hain." We are like this only,
Yeah,
very Indian English sort of thing.
I
And
love that.
yeah, so it's a way of um, like a microcosmic eye into the spirit of that film, for the crew, but not really fully as an in joke, something to share for others.
I love that. And then what was, you're also known for building worlds, like the worlds of Salam Bombay, the Cinema Verita, the worlds of Monsoon Wedding, the worlds of A Suitable Boy. It's so rich in color, in shots, and everything. You started hinting at it with your lookbook with Amrita Sher-Gil, but I'm curious, like, what was the hardest world for you to create, and like, how do you go about world building? Because there's a sense of realism, and I think this is obviously your background. Like Monsoon Wedding, I rewatched it this morning and I was like, it feels like I'm in the wedding. Like it feels
Yeah.
like I'm in the wedding. Salam Bombay feels like I am on the streets with them and listening to their stories. And I think even A Suitable Boy, like there's a sense that, you're just like peeking behind Lata, right? You're with there as she's draping the sari. So how do you build these worlds? And, sorry, one more thing. You said this quote in this masterclass ad where you said that the best directors allow the worlds to permeate them so the audience trusts them. So I wanted to pause on that and understand how you do it.
I think that for me, initially the beginning was really cinema verite, was really how to film real life and the extraordinariness of it, whether it be in a stripper's cabin in a nightclub in Ghatkopar, or you know um, or the train as it crosses a carrick, takes a person from place to place, and the encounters on a train in India, which is really like theater. It's theater on a train always. um, I think it's being a student of that full immersion into life. By full immersion I mean emotionally, politically, and visually. um, I think that's colored me, and it has become my, without and I also think that after making 7 8 years of documentary, of trying to film whatever life was giving me, I wanted to then control that life and what I was seeing. Initially that desire came from wanting a bigger audience, because in those days, in the 80s, when I made my documentaries, there were very few audiences for it. There was some television, there were libraries, there were unions, there were groups, there were universities. It was never net, there was nothing to get out there, So I wanted, to get out there. And suitable, I mean, sorry, Salam Bombay came out of, not wanting to hit and run with frames, which is when you enter the world of street kids and government remand homes and exploitation of all kinds, and the red light areas and all that. It's going to be hit and run if you're bringing your camera in, and but I wanted by that time more control over narrative, over drama, over gesture, over visual. And my entry also through into documentary filmmaking in cinema verite was initially through still photography. I studied with Mitch Epstein. I studied with, you know, several teachers, and I loved. And they taught me how to see, how to make a frame, how a frame is essentially sacred, and that was a big part of it. Although I was not cut out for the observational, detached look of a photographer into society, I'm cut out to be in the mud with the people. That's what my personality. I love people, and I love the the it's just truth is more powerful than fiction can ever be, but just as the inexplicable things that happen in life every day, you know it just is. Those are the things that I that fuel me, besides the larger political things that happened, which is also about life anyway. So those things have taught me actually how to see. and how to then um, build that world, build this world. And I think a part of me is also um, very somewhat of a, no, I don't want to use the word anthropologist, but I really like to um, show the contexts of how we become who we become, you know. And that's why I've, in the beginning, I just didn't know what studios existed for, because I always filmed in real life. And of course, I now can film, not now, several years filmed in studios and created hopefully life within the studio walls. But for me, the real places, real people. In Suitable Boy, I went to old, of course, old homes and new, old homes, but, and I always cast the staff that belong to those homes, the retainers, the people, because even the way they move within the home, how they know that this door creaks and that doesn't, and how they'll open this and ye kahan se jayega wahan se, and the kind of shapes they own self create, I see. And I want to do that. That actually informs my camera. And I really think it informs the audience in giving them a sense of trust. Okay, we have come to this place that means, that is real, in some way. So that's the beauty of fiction, is that you can try to create that electricity of being at home, with but construct it at the same time, and of course you work with actors who work with that construction, not who are shining out of that construction, or not who are, oh, this one, for me the worst compliment is, oh, this person stole the show. I can't bear it, because my work is to make that whole world, the whole ensemble. So I don't know how but that's how I do it. And I think cities really interest me. And also the cities that I have chosen to make films about are those that I know well, and that I want to, that I seem to have, I get a little clue on how to capture the essence of it or something. Like with The Namesake, it was the bridges between Calcutta and New York that was the visual key unlocking for me, as opposed to, sinking into the banality of the usual between worlds, cold, snow, heat, light, it's not enough for me to have broad strokes. It has to have a visual way in. Um, yeah, so Brahmpur, yes, of course, Vikram wrote it about it so eloquently, but it's also Bhubaneswar in some ways, and I just wanted to film in those porches when the car comes in and the peons hop out, and you know, and the lady of the house waits for the man, self-important man, to emerge from the, ministry with his khata in his hand. No, he's never in his hand. It's always the peon holding it. I mean, I've grown up like that, you know, and I've wanted to make those images. Or even Tabu as Ashima hauling, her husband's sweater, not knowing how to dress, in a cotton sari in the snow, hauling the laundry, down. I've seen it so many times in life. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, the days when I was there in the 70s, there were not many Indians, and there were so few that we would just run across the street, say, oh, I'm also Indian. Where are you from? It was those days. So I had seen so many of, I didn't know how to dress in the snow for 3 years. 3 years I didn't know how to dress warm, you know, and but I wanted to make that image so much, so that when I came to The Namesake and making that image, it was infused with many years of seeing this, and yet not seeing it on screen. We are never on screen. We were never.
We were never. Until
yeah.
Well, I want to ask another question is, whenever I find any small, critique of anything you've done, which is so tiny, it's often because there's these adaptations and these existing, expectations. Yes. Whereas the worlds that you create that are original, that you've created with, Suni or Sabrina, people are like, oh my God, this is amazing. And when there's an existing book, people will find fault. So tell me about that. Like, do you not struggles not the right word, like when you take on adaptation projects, how could how could anybody ever appease the existing audience? Like, I feel like it's like a catch-22.
But you can't think of them. I don't think of them. I have to think about, and it's not entirely true that the originals get the love and the adaptations don't. I mean, The Namesake gets so much love that it's just beyond. I mean, or You know, so it's not so much like that. It's not so easy. But frankly, I don't think about them. I don't think about it. I think about the angle I'm bringing to it, and I think about what I want to say from it, and how can me, and in this case Suni, or how can we get that ras, you know. With the Suitable Boy, it was unusual for me in that I inherited an adaptation, you
Right.
know, and then of course gave it my best shot and gave it my full on, you know, love, and whatever knowledge I have, you know. But I inherited the structure. I inherited the structure, but the book also came with it. But one could have done it in other ways, you know. But I made, you know, I shaped it. But I also know I come from a very pragmatic world, where I also know that if you don't do it, if you don't seize the moment, this is not going to happen again.
No.
So yes, okay, these are the constrictions. ठीक है, I'll figure it out. And often it comes with a lot of personal sacrifice, you know, salaries, whatever. You make your choices, you know, and it came with that. But it was a labor of love, because I loved that book, and I didn't want it, you know, anyone. I mean, I may not have done whoever thinks whatever, but um, you know, it's yeah.
Well, let's
I think
let's
it's
just say I think we're excited that you're helming them,
yes,
and I think it just comes with, I think, undue high expectations sometimes,
yeah,
because they have
yeah.
these existing audiences. I also want to talk a little bit about Mississippi Masala as like my last question for you.
Okay.
You were so ahead of your time. Like, it comes out in 1991. It's almost been 30 years. We are having some of the same conversations, whether it's about racism, about colorism, about sexism. You know, I'd love to hear a little bit from your side, like, you know, A, how do you think you guys were so far ahead? And B, what can we do as a society now, today in 2020, to, I guess, make a better world? Because some of those issues have not been resolved yet. We're still dealing with them.
Well, thank you for saying that about being ahead of the time and all. But you know, racism within our Indian hearts has always been an ancient, and uh, it's a resident, an ancient resident. And it has always pissed me off, has made my, it has made me burn about it. And I have no room for it. And and of course, always a questioning and a challenging of it, you know. And it became further interestingly heightened coming to America, because even though there were so few of us that was visible then, still this great weird trick of history that took Ugandan Asian exiles to Mississippi, which was dirt poor, so that they could afford their first businesses, having not much, and they could also hire their own families, and it could just stay within themselves and make these businesses work in some respect. Um, it was just this weird trick of history that they landed in a African American community that had fought for its own rights for so long, and that was the truth of it. You know, they are there, and that's what happened. But this racism is resident, you know, and then the irony also that these Asians, Ugandan Asians, had never known India as home, except spiritually in some way, but had really been 3 generations, often sometimes more, uh, as Africans, you know, as African Asians, or whatever, you know. And still the separatism, you know, the lack of the very limited intermingling, and all of that, that always just, it amazed me. But of course, the idea of the Ugandan Asians coming to Mississippi was born out of just reading about it. I didn't know about it. I read about it, and I thought, how peculiar. What a trick of history this is, that they come from the real African continent into an African American continent, and yet the old prejudices and the old loves. I mean, in our story, Jaimini Patel is not a racist. He's somebody who is completely engaged with the Ugandan life, but is then, disillusioned deeply by being asked to leave his home for so many generations. So it's all those shades of, it's not just about one thing, because life isn't about one didactic, Indians are racist. We are not, we are and we are not, both, And what happens, this was a great microcosm to challenge that, what makes, and of course for me what was extraordinary was the commonality between the African American communities and the Indian communities in Mississippi. I lived there with them, and for months, Suni and I, and we, it was astonishingly similar, and yet ne'er the twain should meet. And what if they would, what would happen, that was based on, it was based on those questions. And even in Uganda alone, Africa is for Africans, Black Africans. No one's, it was the saying the unsayable, but it was the truth, of the time then, and pretty much so many times it comes up now, um, I think, films, the films are privileges. We have to use it as a privilege to state your mind and your heart, and to state the fire that burns in the world. I think so. Not didactically, not just limited by agitprop, not that way, because it's not what interests me. That feels like homework to me. But to find a way that you just see the world a little bit anew, even through an irritating questioning, even through something that offends sometimes. Like the Indian community could not take Mississippi Masala here when it was opened. It was quite successful. It was successful in its way, and they felt challenged. Of course, we were really a minority then too. This was early 90s. I mean, I would have men challenge me on the subway, coming up to me and saying, "You think every Black man is Denzel Washington? You want our daughters to, what do you want? What do you want?" They would say straight to me. But it's good, isn't it, to rile you up? I mean, but to rile with some degree of with not irresponsibility, with some degree of, love and irreverence, both mixed. You have to do it, because otherwise, other people can make pleasant afternoon movies, but some people, I don't know, I just, and the same went for Monsoon Wedding. It was cathartic that it started the conversation of sexual abuse within our families, which is something that even my best friends warned me not to do in the movie, because they would say, "Mira, if you want to make a film about masti," and what I used to say, the intoxication of life, the largesse of spirit of Punjabi hearts, that we love, we hug before we know your name, and also, you have fundas of Punjabi.
My boyfriend is Punjabi, by the way.
Oh, very good. You have chosen well. he'll show you a good time.
Well, how did you get the name Pagliji? Because that's on your handles. How did you get that?
Pugly is my nickname from childhood, because I was always nuts, right? So then when we started Facebook, so my son must have put me on it because of Reluctant or one of the movies coming out. They said, "What will be your name?" And I didn't even understand what handle meant at that time. So I said, "No, I don't want to have them know it's me, because then I'll be inundated." So Pugly. And then now, because a lot of people now, because I've gained respect, call me Miraji, we decided to, I don't even remember, but it was, Pugly is my nickname from childhood. And G to laga diya, because now I must be deserving it.
Yeah, of course. You do.
Pugly is very baffling and interesting for when Hollywood Reporter and Variety, say Pugly G's movies. Opening, whatever they say, it's really funny to read the Hindi word in all these mainstream.
I'm glad you're making them do it. Okay, and then I have to, do another plug for A Suitable Boy.
Yes.
Tell us, we should all be watching this. It's coming out on our neck of the woods, out on Netflix October 23rd in select countries, out in America and Canada on December 7th. I think this is the best time, honestly, not the best time, but especially with what's going on in the world. A Suitable Boy, I think everybody needs to watch it.
Okay.
Mira, what would you say to people about this, about this foray? It's your first TV series and it's really important to watch.
Well, I hope to, like Vikram did. I mean, I hope to transport you to into an immersive journey of what India was, in 1951 when we were creating a free India, a new India, and our first democratic elections. When we were already so many of us, the elite were already so anglicized and yet trying to shake off the Englishness. We were already, and we were trying to find our way, politically. And of course, it's about Lata, trying to find her own way, both in every sense of the word of coming of age. And but I think it's important for the young today also to remember from whence we came and to not forget where we are heading, which is like we came from something that had a dream and idealism and the best of what we had, despite the trauma of partition, despite the bloodshed. Still, the old syncretic culture was so inextricably bound in friendships and everything else, language and music. But today, we are that same strength of our plurality and the strength of who we are is systematically being broken. And it could be such a time where you will not remember. It's that Kundera book, the unbearable unbearable forgetting, I call it sometimes, even though it's the lightness of being.
Like,
But
yeah.
but to not forget, from whence we came, and also to look and enjoy, the 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 simplicity in some senses and the great beauty and the power of our ideals, versus where we are now. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
it is not just India. It's not just India. It's across the world. This nationalism, this raising walls instead of breaking borders. It's everywhere.
No, thank you, Mira. I think that's 100% spot on. I will tell you some gossip now that I'm done with my questions.
Yes.
So I remember, I think I bumped into Ishaan Khatter in Bombay because I'm super obsessed with Bollywood. And I know you give a lot of ode to Bollywood in a lot of your movies. Yeah. And I remember he was nervously talking about reading the book. And I'm now 100% sure it was A Suitable Boy.
Must have been, because it's probably the only book he had read or
something. By the way, do you watch a lot of Hindi cinema as well?
I do. Now with Netflix and Amazon and all, it's fantastic.
Do you have like your favorite Bollywood actors you would love to cast one day? Because I know you love working with more of the Nasruddin Shahs and the Shefali Shahs of the world, but
yeah, and this one, like Manoj Pava, Vijay Verma, Vijay Raj. I mean, there's so many, like Ranveer Shori. I think he's one of the great actors of our country. So I'd love to work with Alia Bhatt. I am going
worked
to
with her mother in.
I worked with her mother. Yeah, God bless her. I'd love to work with her, and I will work with her, inshallah. And anything with, well, anything with any of the Shahs, frankly, they're fantastic. And but no, whenever I long to work with somebody, I really try to work with them.
I love it. I love that.
It depends on the subject, but yeah. So, but there are who am I thinking of? I mean, with again with the Amrita, it is she's half Hungarian. There's a whole European cast as well as a whole Indian cast.
Have you cast Amrita already?
No, not yet. We're just finishing the screenplay, and but it'll be wonderful to cast her, because she's, what a role it is, amazing, and in every single way. And so yeah, that's going to be exciting. And now the pool of that also has improved, big time, because even though I'll never shy to cast somebody who's new at the game, um, the whole film will run on her. So it will be important to have as much of a acting chops as you have can bring to the table, you know. But anyway, that'll be next. And yeah, and I'll be casting the musical again for India, because we'll open in, I think, we are determining the date right now between Diwali and spring 22, but it's COVID dependent basically. um yeah, but
I'm
casting is pure joy, pure joy. Like, you know that lovely Joita, that's her first film, the Tasneem in Suitable Boy, and
oh,
she was in the musical. She played Alia. She played Kimaya's part
oh, that's
in
so
the stage
cool.
musical.
That's super
That's how I
cool.
know her. And get this. She was 22. She was a consultant. She was at McKinsey, and
Okay,
she
I was at McKinsey. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you know, and then you ran a newspaper. I mean, you know, Juggernaut. But she dropped McKinsey to try and make it as an actor,
I love that.
and then became Alia in Monsoon Wedding the musical. And then I love. I mean, she's a movie star. I can just see it, you know, and. I'm also very interested in the physiognomy of people, you know, in the faces of people, like because I know I know who the camera will either love or not accept. You know, I'm very like effete almost. I don't know if that's the right word. I have my own thing about that, you know. So Joita is like amazing bombshell, you know, and I knew she was made for the movies too, you know. So
Man, this shit is messing with my patience.